So maybe I've been overthinking this cooling system leak. I thought it was building too much pressure and leaking around this hose, so I replaced the cap on the coolant reservoir so it could vent pressure there at 20 pounds. And I replaced the thermostat with a proper one with the jiggle pin. That still didn't fix the issue. So I'm thinking it might just be a bad hose. So I got a new hose, and we got a new thermostat housing because that one's failing already after 6 months. You have to cut this hose to fit. It's a little bit longer. Kind of weird that it's a GM part number, but it says it was for this car. I've had to work on my VW cooling system so much with these clamps that I got sick of using these regular channel lock pliers, and I went ahead and bought the special tool for it. So I think my only complaint with these pliers might be that sometimes you can't get the last ratchet spot. You need to squeeze it a little tighter, but it won't. It's bottoming out and not clicking in. There's just not quite enough room. Oh, these things are going to save me so much time. You can see right there, it's already separating. There's the temperature sensor. So I noticed this because I was changing the thermostat over to the one with the jiggle pin in the last video. So if I just kept running this, eventually that would have broken off and then went through my cooling system and could potentially clog it up or damage your water pump. When I changed the water pump, it had broken fins, so there's no way to really even keep an eye on it unless you keep taking it off and then check in 6 months and see if this is breaking away. So there was a time where I slapped a bunch of gasket sealer on this one and I was able to run it, and that'll work, but it's not good. So I've already replaced this temperature sensor and this plug, so we'll take those ones out. You take your thermostat cover off and reuse that. That's a VW part right here. You just keep reusing that. So I thought my problem was my thermostat not having a jiggle pin and causing too much pressure in the system. But the more I look at it, I think the jiggle pin would only be creating the pressure vent in the hose going to the heater core. I think that's where this one goes. So instead of the head gasket, I think it's either the hose or a bad clamp. And I don't know if these clamps go bad. That one looks a little misshapen. But Ricardo down at CarQuest, I ordered 1.5 inch, and we got the 1.5 inch after 2 days. And I walk in with this part and the hose, and he says, "Oh, those aren't going to work. You need 2-inch clamps, not the 1.5 inch." So let's take some quick measurements. The outlets are going to be 1.5 inch. The inner diameter of our hose, just over 1.5 inch. And our factory VW clamps, just over 1.5 inch. The clamps Ricardo at CarQuest told me I need 1.72. Now, we did hold the clamp up to the hose, and if you expand the clamp, it's going to be tight around the hose. But is it going to be tight enough? So, do we use these clamps, or do we reuse the factory clamps? So the new clamps do have more of a solid surface, where these, you're going to get like a little rib, I guess, in between. And you can kind of see that in here. So that could be the issue, where it's not round anymore. So I have my new hose cut, and I put it on with the new clamps, and I did put oil in the hose to make it easier to work, but I don't know, I think these new clamps might just be too loose. So now I kind of want to go back to the old clamps. So I put the new hose on with the old clamps, and if we have a leak here where it's been leaking, then we'll have to figure something else out, but it's pretty tight. I don't think we're going to have any leaks. Plug up your temperature sensor, reconnect these other hoses, and we should be good to fill it up. If you listen close when I squeeze this hose, you can hear the jiggle valve jiggling. So it's been 111 miles since I replaced this hose in the coolant flange, and it's not leaking anymore. So I think it was just leaking around the edge of this hose because there's no tears or rips in the hose. It was just old, and if you look in, you can see it's all kind of cracking and but it wasn't leaking through there. It was just pushing its way up past the clamp. And the factory VW clamps leave this little ridge, so you're only clamping where the white is here and the white is here. So if it leaks again, we'll just get new clamps, 1.5" and put on there, and that should fix the problem. Really glad that I caught this coolant flange failing. This wasn't leaking anywhere, but eventually that's going to break off. So if we keep having problems with the thermostat housing and the plastic breaking away like that, we'll have to upgrade it to the aluminum one. I upgraded the coolant pipe to the aluminum one already, but this is a little bit more expensive to get made in aluminum, so for now we're just going to have to wait, and the next time we have our cooling system drained out, we'll check on it. So I still don't know if you need a jiggle pin in your thermostat or not, or if replacing my coolant cap made a difference. But at least we got the leaking to stop. Now we can go back to working on the suspension and ball joints and tie rods and stuff.